What's going on, everyone? Thomas Jordan here for another episode. Today, we are joined by cinematographer, video editor, and colorist Joshua Tubbs. What's going on, buddy?
DJ, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. How are you? This is a long time coming, man.
I know, man. It's been a minute. I know,
I'm
like we
trying
were
to,
talking.
yeah, I was trying to even think of how I know we met over one of your YouTube videos a while
Yeah,
back, but I'm just not sure how far back. It's at least 4 years.
yeah. It's been a minute. It's been a minute and a half. It's funny. It's like I'm like I know Thomas. It's like we haven't met in person. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's like I feel like I know you so well, right? So it's just like the power of the internet.
The
Salute.
power of the internet, the power of YouTube, man. But we'll just jump right in. I know, like I said, cinematographer, video editor, you know your way around a camera and Premiere, I'm sure. But how do you use video in your business?
Yeah, man. So like how you're saying with video, it's always been mostly for client-based stuff, right? So creating work for clients, help it. I say it as like trying to evoke action, emotion, or something from people for clients to help. Sorry, no, what was my selling point that I say? I'm trying to think about my LinkedIn and like things I put, but
Yeah, all
creating
the
videos
yeah.
that help
It's
you
like, what was
think,
my
act, or
value
feel.
statement? It's like, what is it again? Yeah.
Yeah, like what's that selling point? Um, Creating videos that make people think, act, or feel. One of those three things, right? And it's mainly creating. It's always been creating videos for clients. A lot of times, I was living in the world of I'd say like music, fashion, that kind of stuff. And as time progressed, like corporate, um, and then always wanted to do short films and things like that. But obviously, from a sense of like business, it's always been through those avenues of corporate, fashion, or music, and something like that aspect. So creating work for people is pretty much the short way of saying what I've done.
Yeah, and what do you like creating work for other people, or do you like it more when you're creating for yourself? Because I know there's some people who like to work for other people and love creating for, but then there's other people who kind of like their own style, their own spin.
Yeah, you know what? It depends on the day. It really
Yeah.
does, because there's days where it's like I someone comes with a great idea, someone's doing something that's something different. You're like, I enjoy doing this. And then there's days where you like, I hate what they're doing. I want to do it this way, right? And you can't because it's a client project. So there's times where it's like your own thing is nice, especially for speed. Um, and I guess like that final say so, like you don't gotta have to worry going through channels. But yeah, it's kind of like a 50-50, whatever it is. I like bringing people's ideas to life and like seeing them happy of like what was created. It's like was in their mind, and either you exceed the expectation or you hit the expectation. Um, but then yeah, doing that's a bullshit way of like giving a non-answer. I just said both.
Well, how does it make you feel though, like when a client like you bring that vision to life and they
Mhm.
finally start seeing the pieces coming together, and then when that finished product hits, like what is the feeling you get when you see that your client is just over the moon?
Oh, that is something that makes it's part of the process that makes you actually enjoy what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
Um, Seeing them happy with it, seeing them again, if you exceed the expectations too, that's when it's like it's amazing because they weren't expecting that. It's kind of like you gave them an extra that they weren't expecting, but just to see them happy with what you created, brought their vision to life, is something that I think is a feeling that it's actually more satisfying than hitting export
Mm.
sometimes.
Dang, man. What do you have a project in mind? Because I know you said you worked with an agency. Is there somebody's project that you worked on that like which project was it? Can you say? Like that
I'll say
just kind
because
of that you had that feeling?
I'll say it's one. So yeah, currently I work for an agency where I'm the editor there. But the one that made me really feel like, oh, was this is years back, years.
Hmm.
Let's say we're going like almost like I think almost 10 years
Oh,
back. So
jeez.
yeah, pretty far. I did a music video for this guy, and I remember we shot it. It took a couple days. Um, this was like I was shooting it on like a what was it XHA ones. This is a while back, like on HDV tape. You know what I mean?
Oh man.
It's still up on YouTube though. And I remember after we shot it, I edited it for a long time, took a long time, and then I showed it to him. When I showed it to him, I was in my mom's laundry room in the building. I asked him to come there to meet. I was like, I'm in my office to meet them. And then I sat them down. I had my laptop. I played the video for them, and like the video was like it was a whole music video that ended up being like a 6 minute music video. There was like acting scenes in it, all that kind of stuff.
Oh wow.
And then the artist actually like shed a tear. Yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah. And that's what maybe I was like, oh snap. Like it was like out of happiness. Like he was like, oh man, but like it's like was like welling up. And like that
Wow.
feeling there was like a feeling that I'm like, I always want to like get this from people, right? Like obviously you can't make people cry all the
Yeah.
time. But I think that was from them being like you asked earlier, like when someone is like just ecstatic and happy, like that feeling of like what he had at that moment, like was just kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Not certified, but it just justified like so much work that goes into it. Like especially during those times when there wasn't really necessarily um you're not seeing the fruits of all the labor, you're just seeing the
Yeah.
labor. So it was nice to like see that because you're like, okay, like I'm gonna keep doing this because that's definitely something that like I want to see more people
The,
do. Cry.
yeah. The validation. The
Thank you.
validation.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
What about your own work? Did
Mhm.
have you shed a tear over a piece that you've made before?
I've never shed a tear over a piece I've made. I want to one day. And it's gonna be like the way I see it as let me just paint this picture. It's gonna be something where it's gonna be like a coming of age film of like a series or a short that will make me do that. That's the thing I want to create that make me shed a tear. But I think it's a feeling. There's a feeling I get when I'm editing something that just gives me this. Oh, it's like a weird feeling of nostalgia, but it's not nostalgia because you like what you're doing, you might have never experienced before. But it's this feeling of nostalgia, excitement, hope that like meshes together. And that's like the type of editing and videos I like to do, like giving that feeling kind of it's like its own lane, but yeah. I
Heck
can't
yeah,
think of
man.
one per se, but that's the yeah.
It's pending right now.
Yeah, pending right now.
And at the agency though, so is that where you work with a lot of podcasts and video podcasts and things like that?
Yeah, so currently at the agency I'm working at right now, uh, we created a podcast called The Moment That Changed Everything. And that one was is geared towards the advertising world because the agency I work at is actually an advertising agency that has a studio portion with it. So it's like kind of like production house as well as a advertising, traditional advertising ad house. So we have like an AOR for a lot of clients and things like that. So there, the moment that changed everything was one of the podcasts I started working on there first. And that was interviewing people in the advertising world, writers. We got directors as well. We expanded it so it could be a lot more, but it was essentially at first it was like copywriters. That was like what it really was for,
Hmm.
right? But then we expanded. So that's like the one that I was working on there. I have my podcast with my boy Will. It's called the Secret Filmmaker Society podcast. We still do that. It's just been on pause. We call it the most the most consistently inconsistent podcast because we just do it when we feel like it.
Yeah.
But we want to be consistent with it. But now at the agency I'm at, we're actually doing a lot more podcasts actually. So for clients as well.
And I know it's tough to in consistency. We hear it all the time. Content is king. What consistency is queen is what I think the saying
I think
is.
that is like the two cousins right there.
Yeah, right. So it's like, but I feel like even just for people, average passionate podcasters,
Yeah.
it's like whether you have a team or not, I feel like consistency is just it's one of those things you come across and you have to learn and things like that. Even with the
Mhm.
agency and a team, is that something you guys have to battle as well?
I think it's different there. Like if
Uh-huh.
I would say the differences between whether it's like freelancing, doing your own thing, opposed to being like in a business that's like totally structured right that way. You know what I mean? And it's been there because it's been there, I think, for like 17 years. It's like there, it's more you're held accountable. So like consistency there is like you gotta, you know what I mean? But when it comes to, I would say doing your own thing, obviously that's where it's like pushing yourself is harder. There, I think it's because it's accountability there to your other coworkers, the clients, all that jazz. It's
Mm-hmm.
easier to stay consistent there. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. And if you could and I know it's hard to stay consistent for yourself, but like when you decide to go like to be consistent or like what are some tips people can that are solo
Mm-hmm.
can use what are some tips that they can use to stay consistent themselves?
Yeah, man. I think the one thing, and I've been even doing this with myself, because like regardless, I still always like to work on my own thing, right? Like and have things, projects going on in the back. It's I think it's one thing that I've been doing that has been helping. One is disconnecting. I know it's kind of like, but disconnecting from social and things like that. It kind of, for myself, I've noticed it's been a that whole endless scroll is real.
And dude, I honestly, I'm glad you said that because I don't think people understand how like powerful that is because
Mhm.
like even I mean even whether it's Instagram, TikTok, before you know it, I mean you're sitting there for 4 hours just scrolling and like time goes by and you're comparing and then it's like that I don't know, like that subconscious comparison game to all these other creators sets in, and it's like, well, they're doing this. It's just like, how am I gonna do this? This seems they have so many followers. This, but it's like if you just took yourself out of it and just created your own and just stop focusing on that, I think you'd be in a lot better place.
Exactly. And even what you said, that whole subconscious thing, I think it's not even like the comparison sometimes. It's the fact that like it seeps in that like you might have an amazing idea, right? And you're like, yo, this
Mm-hmm.
is sick. I want to do this. If you go search that idea, there's been so many people that have done it before. And like the way you're seeing it in your mind is going to get so misconstrued once you start looking at what everyone else is doing. So, yes,
Yep.
to what you're saying, there is that subconscious part that pulls in of like comparison. But then there's that other part of like, now you start doubting your own ideas because you're like, oh man, is my idea as good as I thought it was? Someone did it this way. So that's why I say the disconnect helps with consistency, because being bored is when you create, like it's when you think about the stuff that's the best. Like what they say it is, the shower, you come up with cool ideas
Yep.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like that's where I realized I'm like, all right, cool. Like let me break away from the internet for a while, social media, things like that, and just like think of things that's like that I
Any
find cool. Yeah.
Yeah, my one of my mentors calls it sitting in the silence, and it comes in different shapes
Mm,
or forms, and it's because like okay, we're in the like in the shower, right? We just whether you know it or not, it's a like you're not thinking. For me,
yeah.
it's like the shower or like right before I go to sleep, my brain likes to turn on because it's just like, I have so many hours in the day for it to turn on. And, at, 10 o'clock at night, it's like, oh, we're going to come up with like 10 million ideas right now. Or at the gym, like I'll have some like hard metal going on in my head lifting. And then all of a sudden, dude, just ideas just start. I started to have to carry a notebook with me because like I'd figure, you forget about it. And it's like you don't want
So
to
true.
lose these ideas. So it's just, yeah. And kind of also what you said before I forget is let's just say you have an idea. I feel like you could kill your own idea by looking up to see what others did,
Exactly.
because if you had an idea it could have been like the next best thing, but since you looked at what other people were doing, now immediately your whole thing is it's changed, it's completely done.
Exactly.
So your little
That's
sprinkle of could be like viral content just got shot to what.
exactly, because you can't take out that thought now of like what you
Yep.
saw. You're like, they did it that way. Oh, maybe, and then theirs could be so dope. So you're like, I need to do it that way too. Now you're trying to put a spin on their thing rather than continuing with your own idea. So like, yeah, it's like you kind of have to like just block yourself. I like that. Sitting in silence is exactly what it is. And the gym is definitely a spot too where ideas come up. But I hate when you forget. The notebook is what I gotta start doing.
Dude, I've got them everywhere because like, and I've got notes in my phone to put in there, and I have to carry around, or I'll do it when I'm driving or listening to
Mm,
like a good podcast and walking on the treadmill or walking outside. That's when if I'm listening to like a really good podcast, that is when the ideas start flowing. I'm not trying to lie. The reason I'm double downing on this is because
mhm.
I feel like a lot of people do that. They'll compare themselves or they'll sell themselves short, or they're just not confident in themselves. It's just
Yeah.
like, just put it out and see if it hits. And same thing with those reaction videos that I'm doing. I was searching to, because I'm not the first person to do a reaction video, but I saw like the concept. I think GQ does something. There's another magazine, but they do these like breakdowns, right? So if it's like, oh, if it's a sniper movie or like a war movie, they'll bring in like this Navy SEAL sniper to be like, that's this,
I've
that's
seen
not
that.
that. And I was like, man, I could do this for interviews. And then I went to see if anyone was doing it. I didn't find anybody. And I'm not saying like I'm like a pioneer, but it's just like I'm just going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it and just keep perfecting and perfecting. And it's like, no matter what the content is, like there's like I don't know. It's sometimes I get fascinated by what you're just pulled in on. Like I'm
Mm,
pulled in. I was scrolling the other day, and like I watched this guy doing landscaping, like edging
yeah,
and mowing, and I'm just like, wait a minute, why am I still watching this? Because it's the process. So it's like, who knows?
yeah.
Maybe I can help somebody. I don't know. So who
Can I
knows?
ask you a question?
Sure.
You
Yeah.
said you'll get ideas listening to a podcast. Are those ideas ones that you get like is it an idea that is inspired by the podcast you're listening to, or is it something like totally separate? Like how you're saying you're watching landscaping videos, right? And you get
Hmm.
inspired by that, but your idea might not be about landscaping, it's about something else, right? So
Yeah.
when you're listening to the podcast and you get an idea, what kind of podcast and slash ideas? Like, is it like in the same world or is it totally separate?
It has to particularly do with to like my business and my ideas, because my
Mm-hmm,
brain's already going 1,000 miles an hour, and I've got like things I've got to do for like video ideas or like course creation or whatever. And
mm-hmm,
what I'm trying to learn is like how to kind of harness it a little bit. So what I'll do, it's like if I'm stuck on something, I'll think about it and then start working out, and then my brain, or or start even driving to the gym. Like
mm-hmm.
if I'm listening to these business podcasts, it's almost like it's the gasoline to the fire, right? It's just like warm. It's like it warms my brain up to like start getting the gears thinking. It's like, okay, well, how can I make this idea different? But
Yeah,
I'll be listening to the podcast, consuming it, processing it, but like there's a part of my brain that shifts, and it's like thinking, it's like doing like this Rolodex type thing of like just ideas, just like trying to like find something that'll click. And then that's when, like I said, I have to carry a notebook with me. So I just write it all down. Like I was
put it
stuck
in.
on a video idea for like 3 days, and I went to the gym and literally just hammered it out like on a leg machine, right? I was just like, so it's just like, it's the weirdest thing on how it works, but it's just like, I'm trying to really harness how to like process that type of power or whatever.
I'm just imagining you doing like your set, and some's like, "How much more
Bro,
sets you guys?" Like, listen to the idea's done, bro.
yeah, no, it's happened. People walking there like, I'm like, yeah. Oh man,
Oh man,
but
you're so pissed off about when
oh,
you
I'm
finish
sure,
doing it.
man. I stopped caring a long time ago, but I usually go to the gym when it's like not that busy anyway,
Got you.
but yeah, and I'm glad we're focusing on this, because like I'm telling you, it's because I'm really curious to how it comes to other people too. Besides the
Mm,
shower, it could be long drives. Like you just got to figure out.
yeah,
Some people meditate. I can't, my brain doesn't let me do that. I just,
yeah.
but
I fall asleep if I meditate. Yeah, I'm being honest, bro. I've done it like 3 times, and I've fallen
yeah.
asleep every single time. Yeah,
That's hilarious, man. Well, so we definitely got consistency covered, and where to get your
yeah.
video ideas. But I know another hurdle for passionate podcasters as well
Mm,
is equipment. I answer questions all the time about gear. People are
yeah.
so hung up in the gear and the softwares. For
Mm,
somebody who works with I'm sure your agency provides you with. I mean, you guys probably
yeah,
have
we get
unlimited
access to a
budgets
lot of
to
software.
limited
Yeah.
equipment and everything. Um, for the people who don't have that, what would you suggest?
Damn, I would say, man, you can rob a bank, and I'm joking, I'm
Yeah.
joking. No, but
It's like for the hours
realistically,
between 1 and 3, it's all clear.
the one thing I would say though is because like doing video, like a lot of times with podcasts, it's a lot of times you want to do a video podcast, right? I don't know about you. Like for me, I like watching. Like I will sit there and watch a podcast, for 3-4 hours. It
Same
feels
here.
like you're a fly on. It feels like you're in the room with them, right? It's just like I haven't got a mic, but I'm just listening, and I enjoy that. And it's like the fly in the wall feel. So a lot of times, especially any podcast in general, I love that whole video aspect with the audio. Now the video, we're at a place now where so many things shoot well, right? So like again, when it comes to video, that's where it's like the gear might not be the craziest thing because we have sometimes you have lighting, like the lighting, etc. Your camera, your phone. I've never wanted to say your phone. It's hard for me to get to that place of saying your phone shoots amazing. Just use your phone. I still think you should use a camera, a designated camera for it, but you don't got to use the craziest, most expensive. You don't have to shoot like an RE or Alexa, sorry, or Red or anything like that to get your thing there. But when it comes to the audio portion of it, I do believe you got to use the best quality you can. You know what I mean? So mics is one thing I think it's important to like invest in there, as well as I guess your post production process as well, right? If you need to clean things up. Um, so to say like I'd advice for people, I'd say try to find the best way you can record, because audio is one thing that even in film people say in video, right? Like it's more than I'd say 50% of the video, because you can see a black screen, hear audio, and like visualize everything that's gonna happen. Hell, like horror movies are scarier when it's like nothing's on screen, but you're hearing things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your audio really does have to be on point. So that's why I said like the whole rob the bank thing. I'm like, how you get
Yeah.
around that?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
there's just so I mean, and that's another thing is like my thing is to also make it simple as well, right? Like that's why I want to do a handful of these videos because right now
mhm,
I've had to stop myself from buying gear because I have a problem, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
want the best and greatest and latest. And but it's like what comes with all that gear, there's just so like I don't think people understand how many other components it's just even in this, like we're doing
Mhm,
this over Zoom. I mean, I've
yeah,
got a digital recorder, you've got a digital recorder.
yeah,
Like you taught me something today about the preferences about separating audio tracks because people are like, oh, one audio track, we're good. But if it's like if you're quiet, then I'm not quiet because to
exactly.
piggyback off what you were saying is people can forgive bad video, but they won't
Mhm.
forgive bad audio. Like this could be both blur like our both our screens could be blurry, but if it's that crispy like that studio feel, like you can forgive it a little bit.
You'll
But
forgive it for sure. Yeah.
you know,
You'll be like doing stuff. I think people listen passively as well, right? So
mm-hmm.
they can forgive that like the visual's not there, but as long as the audio's like crisp, hey, it is what it is. Yeah.
And even knowing how to use it too, because you could
Mhm.
have the best audio equipment, you can have the best, you could have a $12,000 setup, you could have all your stuff look like Joe Rogan, right? You've got the Shure SMBs, you've got the cloud lifters, you've got the preamps, you've got all the best stuff. But if you're That's great, but if you got 15-foot ceilings or hardwood
Oh,
floors, like
true, true, true.
you're screwed. Like
That
was on Instagram and there was a guy. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna set up this awesome podcast." And it was like this sweet house, and like I could hear the echo. And he's like showing up. I go,
mm,
"Bro, that ain't gonna work." And I think thought I was trolling him because
yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
"What do you mean it's not going to work?" I go, "Because you could have all that nice equipment, that echo and reverb, dude, is going
It's
to
just gonna
kill you." And
oh
he's like,
man.
"Oh, damn, we didn't think about that." So I probably saved that dude like 2 grand just by
You did.
saying, yeah.
You did, because you know another thing too is, and that's where like video and all this still attaches to podcasting, is because like you know the whole saying where like if it aesthetically it looks pleasing, the sound's gonna be trash. But
Yeah.
like if it has like a bunch of couches and rugs and like the place, if you think about a lot of times when you see a lot of different studios and their setups, like especially like on TV and things like that, like it was always it seems I don't want to say cluttered. Think of like the Friends like cafe. It
Mhm.
reminds me of that. There's always the stuff around, and it's like condensing all the sound and taking that reverb and that echo out. So you always still gotta think about that whole process when it comes to like setting up your. Actually, one thing I will say, because you're saying what so many people can get. This is not sponsored content, but
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying it's
dude,
like,
you could shout out, drop it. It's all good. We know how it goes.
okay, cool, yeah, you guys need to drop a check to the TJ show.
Yeah.
All right, so I'd say the Sennheiser mic. This is one thing I say Sennheiser EA35. I know there's other forms of it, but it's just I think it's a condenser microphone. It's like the soundstage microphones. You know, the ones that are like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're on a I just think it works well because it cuts out all the background noise and things like that. Like the Shure MBs you're talking about, like those ones I think are the best ones, but those are the ones where you gotta make sure your room has like the soundboards and things like that. This one you can get, it's kind of forgiving for not having that. And like I've used this in places where it's technically like loud. Like I remember I recorded with somebody that was they owned a web design studio, but they
Mm-hmm.
were on like a busy street downtown. And oh, shout out to Chris Hughes. So a nerd's world if you guys want to check him out. And it was like the street's busy. It's like literally being on like one of the busiest streets downtown. And you can hear outside when we're in there, but like on the mics, it's not picking it up. So I would say, and these are not expensive as most mics. Like I know that Shure MB's like it's
Four
expensive. You
hundred
gotta get the
bucks.
cloud lift. There you
Yeah.
go. And then the cloud lifter and all that stuff, you got the pre like that gets it up there, right?
Yep.
This is, I think I got one mic's like $113. There's a 3-pack for 275 when I got it. And
Seal.
then as long as you have like a Zoom or something like that to plug in its XLR, you're good to go. So it's pretty much I'd say $120 mic, and you can get a good sounding You know, as long as you stay tight to it, don't be that person doing all that.
Yeah. Well, dude, hey, it's funny. Hey, shout out to Sennheiser. I don't know if you can see it. That's what this is.
Mm.
Yeah,
I was trying to
so
see. I saw that today.
I'm all about using what you got because like if not, I
Yeah.
like I said I have a gear problem. But yeah, just this is a Shure or no, Shure. This is a
Mhm.
Sennheiser MD50 or something. Either way,
Okay.
like
Okay.
you
Yeah.
said, I mean it's more of handheld because I used to do
Mhm.
hand on red carpet
Yeah.
interviews. So it was like I had to use it. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna use it and it'd be fine.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, like, and we also need to figure out how to get Sennheiser as a sponsor because,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
this goes viral, I mean, we're both using it's like, hey,
We're both. I kind of turned. Ah, you still got that stand. Yeah.
yeah, it's all good, man. Same with Rode, you got the little sticker
Mm.
here.
Those
Uh,
guys you could never get away from. They put it in the places where it's like it's always finds its way in everything.
I know, but then, and that's the thing though with like budget equipment though, like your mic, that's not too bad. I mean, the recorder, I've talked about it
Hmm.
before. That's why I love the zooms because it acts as an interface and a digital recorder. So if you had to be mobile with it,
Yeah.
so that's solid. And then, what are your thoughts on like USB mics and stuff like that? Because I know there's other brands. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I know Shure has one, and I can't remember the other one, but I
It's like
know a lot of.
Bluehost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people are using the Yetis and things like that, or
That's the one
off-brand
I was
Yeti
thinking of.
brands.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on USB mics for people who are
Well, even
starting
before
out?
going into that, I would say one thing back to kind of consistency. I think I like what you just said, the whole thing of like use what you have. I think that's a really good thing to get you consistent because if you're using what you have and just going, you get into that flow and that process state and you don't really get caught up on like not having. Because again, I'm same way. I get caught up on if I just had this and just had this, then you don't start. And if you don't start, can't be consistent, then you're back to us. Like it's just a roundabout. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And then
back
and then
down
and this is just the audio aspect. We haven't even talked about, like what an
visual at all.
interface is or yeah, anything
True.
in post or
Mhm.
because a lot of those things, dude, I mean, we can have these type of mics, but somebody like you can go in and post and
Mhm.
make it sound like a $1,200 setup.
Yeah, and that's what I would have to do a lot of times is go back and clean things up. Um, but like what you're saying with the other types of mics, like the USB ones, I'm not against it. And I don't think I have a problem with them at all. It's just that it's just whatever can give the best sound. Like I know it's not the greatest at times, and again, too, your environment does matter. So I'm not opposed to them for sure at all. But I just think now, like where I'm at now, I'm at a space where I have access, or I have the access to a lot of things that are like the higher professional grade quality. So it's kind of like I guess you get used to it. So it's becomes like, like if you go like you're filming something like small, but there's someone that always has shot on like red or film or
Yeah.
RE. So they're like, yeah, so we'll shoot that on Alexa. It's like, I don't need to shoot that on
Yeah.
Alexa. But that's just their go-to because it's what they've used so much. So
Yeah.
but I am a person that will say what's practical, what works. It doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be good. And if like, I think those USB mics, if you can get them in the right environment or create the environment for it, it can come out very clean. And then again, if you're going to audition or something like that, you can do a lot there to really get it clean and have a very nice sounding podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, and once again, trying to keep things as simple and using what you have because even I'm trying to do a handful of these like with
Hmm.
what I have. Like, can I buy more
Yeah,
gear? Of course,
of
but
course.
like I'm
Yeah.
just using like right now, my laptop is literally propped up on a cardboard shoebox to
Nice.
keep my camera level, and this is like a MacBook, what from 2015. It doesn't look terrible, but it like
Hmm.
you've got to like use good lighting, right? So it's just like,
Exactly.
and even lighting kits. There's a brand called Newer and they've got
Mm.
this like 3-point lighting kit with softboxes for less than $100, and that's really all you need, especially for because like the sensor in these cameras can't really handle anything.
Yeah, it can now.
And another thing, if you've got a like, I see a lot of people using ring lights. I don't know if you see it too.
Mhm.
I just did, it's that harsh light, and I know they're popular, and some people like that look in your eye, and I'm just like, I don't know. What's your opinion on ring lights?
Ring lights, I've never been a fan of ring lights. Like
Yeah, me
I've
neither.
had, especially even like when people ask me to help them like create their YouTube videos and things like that. Um, a lot of times if I'm not working on it, like we'll get to a place where it's like, hey, you can record part of it yourself, and then I can like edit it or come in and do the other parts that need to be recorded like that. And they'll have a ring light, but they're not using it like a ring light. I think that's the problem. People are trying to use a ring light in a different fashion. Like to me, a ring light's like if you're doing makeup or something beauty and like you want to be up close, right? But then people be using it as like a key light sometimes, right? Where it's like far away and they're trying to light something with it, and just it's weird because it's already shot. Like it's just not it. So I'm not a fan of ring lights. I'd rather, like you're saying, a newer um those light panels they have and things like that.
Hmm.
Or if you're going like a step up, you can go into like nan light or aperture. Those ones are like great. I think nan light and aperture. Well, nan light, it's the same. It's same pricing, but Godox, nan light, like if you get their smaller ones, it's like the price is decent once you start getting to that world. But then like newer is doing a good job of being this like in it less. Uh, it's more inexpensive, but it's still getting up there now. What I'm starting to notice with their stuff. I don't know if it's because it's getting more popular and a lot of people are getting it. Um, but something like that to me, I think the ring light, no, a panel, yes, because you can
But
always
you,
bounce it, right?
yeah, and that's the thing, and like if you have a ring light, I always tell like the clients that I work with is like they
Mm,
make soft boxes for those things, or you could even like
true.
take a softbox off something and just kind of like hang it on there, and because
Mm,
that's on one of my LED panels, that's what I had to do because it's smaller,
mm,
so they don't make good ones for that, and I wanted like a bigger thing, so I was just like hanging up on there and it works, or use
yeah,
it for like a backlight or maybe a hair light because it's just that harsh light, especially. I mean,
exactly.
I don't worry about it, but I know some women might because it like just hits your face and it's just like
Yeah.
it shows off the features that maybe you don't want to highlight, you know?
Yeah, and then bouncing is a good idea too. If you can
Yeah.
like just like go to Dollarama or the dollar store and get the what is it? The
Those coolers.
no, no, no. Oh, someone has done that.
I know. I
What?
thought you were gonna make your own softbox. That's what I
Oh
thought
no,
you
no,
were
no,
going.
no, no. I'll just say the what do they call it again? Just the it's not like Bristol board. It's the other one that's like a little thicker, right?
Oh yeah,
Foam
yeah,
core.
yeah,
The
yeah.
foam core like boards that are like that. I've used that many times and like bounced light, just harsh light off of that, and it comes back soft. So yeah, that's a
Hmm.
good thing people can do. Yeah.
And when you're doing all these setups, because I know you've got like once again you have the budget for all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like what? I mean, what other hurdles do you run into when you have a ton of equipment? Because like I said, a lot of people are just using
Mm-hmm.
basic stuff. Like I mean, the stuff we're using now is just
Yeah.
like under $200 well,
Yeah.
including the Zoom, it's like under
Well, the Zoom
three.
brings that
So
up. Yeah.
yeah, the Zoom brings it up, but everything else,
Yeah.
it's not very expensive. But
Mm-hmm.
when you get up into that other level, or just when you get up into that other level, what type of
Mm-hmm.
mistakes are you running into?
True. And one thing I would say too is like with this audio equipment and lighting, it's something that's kind of, I don't want to say forever, but it's pretty long. Like you're not going to be replacing these mics or your
Hmm.
Zoom or your lights for a very, very long time. That's what I'm saying. If you invest in good stuff, like it's fine. Cameras, I sound like when Kanye's like, I like Lady Gaga. I like some of her music. What she know about cameras? I don't know. That just came
Yeah,
to my mind.
yeah.
um, sorry,
No,
side
you're
talk.
good.
But the cameras are constantly always changing, right? So like, one day it's the sensors and this, and that. It's always getting better and better, right? We're at a point now where it's kind of peaked, but you can always get a better camera. The audio gear, I think, is something that for the next, you can get this set up in like the next 5 years, still be using it and stuff. So when it goes into now using things that where you have access to a lot of things, the problems I think you can get into is the overwhelming thing where it's like, all right, like you can get more intricate. So you're like, okay, like now I'm doing too much. Sometimes there's that, right? You're just doing way too much. You don't need to do it. Simplify it. I guess other issues you can get into, you know what? Like it's kind of weird. It's like saying the having access to more things. I guess it's that issue of like, because for me, I had to use for a long, long time, just use what I have or make things work, right? So for me now, having access to more just just solves more of my problems, to be honest, because I've come from the background of not having and having to figure it out, where like I literally would not have something. I'm like, okay, I remember crazy. I did a podcast once and like I only had one camera, right? This was years ago. And so we recorded the guy talking on one side, but not the other guy. So then I had to like literally like we re-recorded like when we're by ourselves, his reverse, and just got him to re-ask questions and stuff like that. Right. So obviously that's time consuming.
Oh
That's
my
like,
lord.
but that was like from not having. So it's like, hey, how do I, but So like clearly now I can always, 2, 3 cameras set up, get everything. So for me right now, the access to more just actually helps me solve my problems, because before I came from not having, so I was able to like have to think on the fly. But I think that makes you way more creative, makes you way more quicker. So when you come into a situation where there's more, it's easier to get things done. Um, so I can't really think of a problem that comes from having access to this stuff. It's just that, yeah, I can't really think of one.
And I
Yeah,
meant,
at the
and
moment.
I did mean problem. I said mistake. I did mean problem, but it's just like I could
Oh,
see
okay.
just for people to get to that like from
Mhm,
like passionate to like that professional level is I don't
mhm,
think people realize how many moving pieces there are.
mhm.
Because like let's just say you're just starting and it's like okay, you finally figured out your audio and kind of how to edit it a little bit, right? But it's like video is just like a whole new thing. Like you got to figure out the lighting, the angles, the soft light, the harsh light. What, is this going to be? It's like, oh, this one's battery. This one works on charged batteries. And it's like, I'll just use that. But then you're using it and then the battery dies and now you got nothing. Or, you film in the wrong frame rate or you bring
Yeah.
it into post and like you go to sync it up. And there's just so many, there's
Yeah, it's
so
true.
many
There's a
things
lot
that can
more
go
moving
wrong.
parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would say that's always a thing, because especially when you're doing a video podcast, that's one thing that you got to worry about, because you're doing the audio and video at the same time. So monitoring both is sometimes hard. Luckily, people are usually just sitting down and like how we are right now, so it's easy
Mm-hmm.
to put things on sticks and leave it like that. Um, but there is that whole thing where there's so many things happening where this camera, like depending on like we've been filming on cine cams that like run continuously. So as long as you have the space, you're good, right? It'll run. But there's times where I have like a DSLR camera as like the main camera, and that only has like a 30-minute runtime before it cuts out, right? So there's things like that where you gotta, and now oh shoot, I wasn't paying attention. That cut out because I was focusing on the audio. So now I gotta make sure this is like cut to someone else talking, and I only have 2 angles to cut to now. So depending on how it is, yeah, there's a lot more moving parts, and also like how you're running it. Like I still will be running it solo most of the time. So it's not like there's a whole team running on that end where it's like filming it. So that part is still like you're saying, the moving parts make it there's a lot more things that could go wrong, but as long as you're used to it, you should be fine.
Yeah, and I don't want to overwhelm anybody because I know like it becomes hilarious after it's a
Yeah.
little frustrating at first, but yeah, I mean, I remember one time I did a podcast and I brought like lugged all the gear there and it was some actress and it was at her apartment in like Santa Monica and my buddy had just got like a new Sigma art lens, the 50 mil.
Hmm.
So it was like, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's just a super nice lens and dude, it's so the thing is the lens is so sharp. My camera could almost like couldn't keep up with the speed, and I
Hmm.
put it on 1.4, which is like the lowest, but the sharpest it could possibly go. And when I got home, like I was like, oh, I can't wait. Da 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 da. I get home, she's blurry, like
Oh man, because she just moves like one bit
she
out
moved
of
that,
frame.
yeah, so the one, yeah, just basically me, like I had the nice camera, like a super nice cinema camera, super
Hmm.
nice lens, like oh my god, like this is gonna look so good. I was so excited and got home and it was blurry.
Oh man.
Man, that was just rough. But I mean, but that's the thing you've got to learn. And that's kind of what I want to teach people too, is just like how to keep it simple. Like I know like we're talking a lot about like audio and video, and it seems like we're all over the place and it's just experiences that we have, but it's something
Yeah.
you'll obviously go through at some point. It's just you kick yourself when it happens, whether you leave the lens cap on or you don't hit record. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever done that before.
I've done that where I haven't recorded, I caught it, and but I played it off. That's the thing, like
Yeah.
you play it off in a way. I made actually a video about that, a TikTok where I did the whole thing where it's like the person did the whole take, and you're like, you know what, that's great. Let's just do one more for safety. You know what I mean?
Good to cover your butt a little bit.
Yeah. And it's just like, so that has happened. But then I think like as time progresses, you learn how to work with it. Be like anyone listening that's like, I would say that's just getting into this or just starting or like, midway through, if you haven't run into these issues yet, I would say it's like, yeah, you get used to it. You kind of learn how to cope with it and uh I guess keep things moving and seem like it's like a well-oiled machine, even though issues will come along. I think that's the thing. You have to understand that issues will happen regardless. Murphy's Law, something will go wrong. But yeah, just the way you deal with it and keep that confidence there. Like talent will never know, but they might.
Yeah. See, I do.
They'll
That's
call
that's
you out.
smart. I'll have to remember that because yeah, I'm just like Don't hate me, man. It's like I forgot to hit
Yeah.
record. And it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, how could you do that? But when you're trying to, especially if you're trying to do an interview or something, there are just so many moving
Mhm.
pieces. Like you said, Murphy's Law, like something's bound to go wrong. But that's another thing. Like, do you working with does stuff like that happen even at the agency when you have multiple people working on, like, you like
Yeah,
just
like I
stuff
think,
just happens?
yeah, I think that could happen anywhere. I think a lot of times too, it's it's because I think now, doing it for like as long I've been doing like video and film and like all those things, it's to a point now where majority of the time you've gone through those issues, so you kind of know to double check in your mind and like, okay, like I triple check, like is okay, is everything on, is that recording, okay, cool, even like before we go 3 times, like even if it's annoying, I don't care, okay, cool, it's going, we're going, constantly checking throughout, monitoring everything. So it kind of like, there, that doesn't really happen as much. But then it's the external factors where that's like another thing that you can't control, and that's like no matter what you get into, right? Where you like, this just happened the other day, we were recording, we are doing a podcast, and like we're working on a project right now where the podcast is people in other countries, I mean, or in other provinces along Canada right now. And one is, we have to connect with a lot of studios outside, like in different provinces, and like get them to like, because it's still a video podcast. But that one day we were recording, everything was fine, and 20 minutes, 30 minutes, everything was good. That right when we're about to hit record, someone decides to start doing construction on the roof. You know what I
Dude,
mean?
Dude, that happens all the time. Like I was about to start like shooting one day and then like the landscaper showed up late that day. And I always wonder what do you think that's called? There's got to be a name for that because that happens all the
All the
time.
time, man.
Like, yeah, I
All the
think even one of
time.
my mentors, they were like, they had like all day. It was a Sunday. It was quiet. They're like setting up, taking their time because it's Sunday, whatever. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
somebody's like, oh, I'm going to try to make this bush look a little, like Edward Scissorhands or something. It's just like, what do you do? Like, what is that? I don't know what that is. It's like
I
the
feel like it's like
universe
someone just
knows.
waiting. Yeah, just
Yeah.
waiting. It's like, all right, are they recording? Recording?
Okay.
And now,
Yeah.
pots and pans. It's like, God.
Oh, dude, that is
Oh
so funny you
man.
bring that up. That happened to me just the other day. But do you guys and I know you work on multiple shows. Do you guys work
Mhm.
on a lot of shows that are like heavy on interviews, kind of like this one?
Yeah, a lot of stuff has been heavy on interviews. I think most podcasts in general are, I would say, are interviews like that. I love the ones where people like just shoot the dish and just back and
Mhm.
forth. But yeah, most of them have been heavy on the interview portion of it, and getting like people's takes and like on different things like that. So yeah.
And the reason I ask is because when I see people want to do like interview shows who don't
Mhm.
know or who haven't done interview shows, and I know we talked about almost the complexity that video and audio can get, but
Mhm.
what are some of the things that people don't think about with when it comes to interview shows?
Yeah, I think what people don't understand when it comes to interview shows, especially when it's people that might necessarily, because a lot of times we're bringing on people that don't talk to camera so much. Like it's not like they're media trained, so you're getting people that necessarily will be talking to the mic and then kind of drift off and come back here, and then as we're going, they're kind of and it's just getting quieter and quieter. And then you don't want to ruin what they're saying, because sometimes they're saying something so profound. You're like, this is amazing, but like I'm not getting it, right? Because like with podcasts, like you got to be up in the mic. So that's one thing. Like the guests usually aren't media trained, especially now. Like things are expanding. We want to talk to so many different people, that like, yeah, they just might not know to stay to the mic and out of frame, things like that. Um, Another thing I would say is, you're saying, sorry, just repeat the question one more time, because like,
What are some of the complex things people don't think about when it comes to interviews? Because I know a lot of people do want to do interview type shows.
yeah,
I mean, I have a list in my head. I'm just curious about what things you run into on your end.
yeah, like my mind has been going a lot more to like the production, like the producing side of like creating the content and the strategy there. And it's like, I guess sometimes they don't think about the questions that they're asking as like, has this been heard before, in the sense of like the people you're asking, like have they said this somewhere else, right? I think I've heard interviews where, like, example, you're familiar with Gary Vee. How many
Mm.
times do we watch like interviews with him, and like the person gets into like his life, which he's explained millions of times that you can get anywhere else. So it's like, all right, like let's get into more of the like something more direct that you're gonna like your take on it is gonna be. So I think that's one thing too, from like a strategy standpoint of like, hey, have this person said a story already? It doesn't matter. Should we condense this to like 5 minutes and go there? Something else I think is, I guess on the post side too, is like structuring your podcast in a way where it's, you can take things out, right? Like editing it. Like, you know what I mean? I think people don't think about it that way, that you can. Because a lot of times, unless you're doing it live, which I know you have a television background and I have somewhat of a television background. So I'm like live is like,
Yeah, let's
that's
do it. Yeah.
yeah,
From
that's
a post perspective, it's like, please, can we just do this and knock this out?
yeah, like that would be amazing. But then with live, I just always think of like how many things can go wrong. You know what I mean? So, you know, you do have the option there to like censor and like kind of go back and think of like, oh, do I really want, you know what I mean? Like to go
Mm-hmm.
out and say this. So I'm still a big believer in the post world and edit and clean it up after and put it back out. Cause like I think live is great. But like live is, there's a lot that can go wrong there too. So I think that's something else people need
Yeah.
to think about as well.
Yeah, I don't think of, yeah, but I love, dude, live is my jam. Just
Yeah.
because
Does it?
like it's off the cuff, like you can I don't even think about editing stuff. Like it's just
Yeah.
like we're just gonna do this and see what happens. Like even
Does it
kind
give
of
you like a high while you're doing it?
oh, 100%. While I'm doing it, dude, I don't even know how I'd explain it. I can only I've tried to explain to somebody before. It's like I get this like massive tunnel vision where like I can almost feel like almost like if you're looking on the back of a camera and then you like whoops, if you like zoom in like your camera and like you get like a tight shot of like their face, that's kind of like what my vision goes. Like if I'm interviewing
Mm,
somebody when I was on the red carpet and
yeah.
like dude, as soon as I got somebody, it was just like like nothing could break me. Like it was just I was just on. But I don't like being in studio. Like a lot of people
Mhm.
like being in studio where there's the prompter and da 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 da. I'm like,
Yeah.
throw me in there and see what happens type of guy.
Nice,
But
nice. Do
that's
you do you
yeah,
do you kind of like black out too? Like, do you kind of forget what you say until you like look back at the footage?
100% happens all the
Yeah.
time. My
Yeah.
it happened when I used to do weather, like when I was a weather guy, and
Yeah.
like I did this one. I was doing coverage in Colorado or something,
Mhm.
and I was just we had to stall for like because we have IFBs in our ears or whatever, and the producer in the background was telling me to stall because there was an issue somewhere, like one of the cameras was flipping out or the prompter wasn't working, so I had, they call it stretching, right? So I'm just
Yeah.
like going and going and going and I'm just talking and like because there's no script for being a weather guy, so I'm just going. And afterwards my the anchor slash news director was like, bro, like that was awesome. He's like, how did you do that? And I was like, I have no idea what just happened. I just blacked out. It's kind of like it's kind of what is it, what movie is it, Talladega Nights? I just see like Will Ferrell, he's like, I blacked out, like I don't know what happened or something. I can't remember. I don't know if it's Talladega Nights, but man,
Yeah.
yeah, stuff like that
Right. Right. One of
happens
those
all
two.
the time with interviews. And that was another
Yeah.
thing on the red carpet. I'd be doing a
Mm.
lot of interviews and I wouldn't know what happened until I got back and watched it back. I'd have no
Yeah.
clue. It's the
That's like
weirdest
the
thing.
gift of gab, man.
Yeah, I know, but it's like I can't even be present because I don't know what you would call that space of mind
Mm.
because I'm
Yeah.
just so in it and it's just like I don't know what I'm saying or doing. I'm just
Yeah.
going.
Nice.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. I never really thought about that. It's interesting you bring
Yeah.
that up. And I'm
Mm.
also glad you brought up that you can sit there and watch interviews because there's like a small part of me that wants to like find the people who like that. Because I thought I was
Yeah.
the only one. I can literally sit there and watch interviews
All
all
day.
day,
Yeah. Same.
like long ones. Like just sit
Yeah.
there. I don't care about the angles. I don't care how fancy it is. I'll just sit there. And that's why I do these video breakdowns too.
Mhm.
Cause it's like I get to watch it and be a part of it and watch it back. Like these 2 hour
True.
interviews, I'm just, people are like, you spent 2 hours. It's like, actually, it's about double that because I watched it twice. They're like, what?
Mm.
But but from a also from like a setup standpoint,
Yeah.
since my this show is very interview heavy, getting on people's schedules and like emails back and forth, do you
Mhm.
have to set everything up or do you have somebody else that does that?
Yeah, like right now, the agency I'm at, I don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like when I did when I'm like, well, again, the most inconsistent podcast, the Secret Filmmaker Society podcast.
Yeah.
Like that part, like well, there wasn't too many interviews on that portion, but even that part, like with me and my co-host Will, is like trying to connect that, like our lives is like it's hard to kind of keep that going at times. But then at least for the podcasts at the agency where we have different people coming through, someone else is usually doing that portion of it and reaching out. And that's a whole beast in itself. You know what I mean? Like we were saying earlier, talking about how like YouTube has so much moving parts, like even that, like outreach and things like that is like a hard thing. And people's schedules and timing and things like that is definitely something hard to like, keep up with. And again, Murphy's Law, when you do it, like again, like I was saying, the one I did a while back, just like last week, and then the construction started on the roof. Like that was also a podcast that was happening where like I know we're in two different countries right now, right?
Mhm.
This was like it was across the country. So like that person came and they came into the studio at that time. So it's like you only have a finite amount of time with them as well, right? So it's like, oh shoot. So that's definitely like a part that can be like stressful, It's again, it almost feels like I don't want to say like the newsroom or something like that, but there is kind of a portion like that. Like time matters so much on set, like regardless, film set, like it matters, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it's like keep it simple, but also just be prepared for just about anything. And I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how you feel about this as a creator as well, as you need to almost learn everything. Like
You do.
your expertise, right? Like whether
Yeah.
you're just starting, like test out everything. Like you could be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, I want to do this video podcast and do all these interviews, but then it's like, what if you get on camera and you're like, well, I don't like being on camera because I don't like the way I
Yeah.
look or I don't like the way I sound. It's like, oh, maybe I like the post part. And then you like the post part where it's like, okay, I can make the video look like this, or it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I can make the audio sound like that. Like, oh, this is better than being on camera. Maybe I'll do that. But even with like the producer part, because it's like, me, man, I'm a one man band right now. So
Yeah.
it's like, besides this and all the setup, like I'm going through the, like, you got to find the talent, reach
Yeah.
out to them, follow up with them, schedule them, shoot it, edit. And then it's just like,
It's a list of
and
things, man.
yeah, and I'm not trying to overwhelm anybody. I'm just trying to be like as honest as possible and like how like complex it can be. But once again, my goal in this episode and in my programs is to keep things insanely simple.
That's smart. I like that. And like you're saying, I don't even think it's realism as well, right? Because someone coming into this might think it kind of gives me that whole mindset of the especially during the last couple of years with like the explosion of entrepreneurism and things like that, and it being seen like the coolest thing. Like people, I don't know if you've seen that TikTok where the guy's like, I left my 9 to 5 to work 24/7.
Yeah, yeah, for entrepreneurs, yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. It's like you're going to be working so much more harder, so much more, right? And I'd say to anyone, even if you're starting your own thing, whatever it is, it's the same mindset, right? Like it's like starting a business, you're creating systems, you're creating structures to follow, right? So like you're saying, keeping it simple is like one of the most important things. um Kind of to piggyback off what you said with recording on the Sigma art at 1.4, right? Like things I've learned actually where I would say that like, okay, when you do have access to things, how you kind of actually dial it back is like that has happened before where you've shot something, you set it up and it can go like, it's like your focus plane is right here and the person decides to move a little bit. And now, because you're not manning that, that can happen. That's happened to me before as well. I think what I've learned now too, sometimes like where like if I had like something like at a 1.2 or 1.4, something I can go like that, I just know, okay, like this has to have flexibility if I'm not going to have people like 3 people manning cameras. So I think one thing I do is I do dial things back where I'd go to like a 2.8 or even like a 4 where it would look so beautiful if this was like a 70, like a 200 millimeter at like 1.8, but like I can't because I have to man it. So I think that's what I've learned as now is like, again, to especially like whatever's the priority. Like if I'm gonna do a podcast, it's like, all right, audio is priority here. So like you guys like stay as tight to the mic as possible because it's again like we were saying before, it's forgiving on the video and like I can always cut to a different angle or something. But like if I focus on like the visual there over the audio, like I can't get that audio back in a way. So yeah.
Yeah, just real quick for the people who don't know what, the 1.8, the 1.4, the
Oh, so
2.4 is.
yeah.
Yeah. Could you explain that real quick?
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, like when you're shooting on a different lens, whether it is a cine lens, it's like T-stops, or you're shooting on something that's a photography lens where it has f-stops. The lower the number, so when we say like a 1.4, it pretty much we're saying like for anyone like the blurry background. You know what I mean? So like the
Yeah,
depth of
that
field. So
crispy. Yeah.
yeah, so your person in focus will be super sharp, but the background will be super like out of focus. But if you go up to like a 4.0 or like a 8.0 or something, everything starts to get more all in focus. So like if you guys are watching this video right now, like just on the, like you could still see my background, but if we were shooting on like a 50 millimeter 1.4, my background would probably be out of focus, but you'll still see me. So yeah.
Yeah. And real quick, as far as like if somebody was because I want to be respectful of your time,
No,
I'm
don't worry,
always
man. I ain't got nothing to do. It's got a towel to fold and a fork to put away. That's it.
well, Joe Rogan this thing. It's like, dude, let's see how long we can go.
Yeah, man. I
But
feel like he goes like what, like
oh man,
6 hours. Like actually, there's multiple.
I could easily keep going.
Yeah.
But for those starting a video podcast, what would you say
Mhm.
is the best piece of advice for them when just getting started?
Best piece of advice when starting your video podcast. Um, I think your setup is going to be important. So think about how you actually want to do it. Like, depending on what you have access to, you might see something where it's like multiple cameras and different angles. I'm gonna piggyback and steal what you said, keeping it simple. Um, your first one, maybe focus on just like if you're doing it in person, one main shot, a shot that's just like one camera, one main shot, and you get mics and you're both in frame. You know what I mean? You can always kind of play and punch in, and that's something you want to do if you want to full screen it. And if you have access, you can get a second camera, third, etc. If you do have two cameras, let's say, I would say focus on the talent. So one main shot and then the talent talking, because you're important as the host and the interviewer, but like you can always be the main shot, the wide shot, then like having it there. And then if you get three, then you're good to go. But keep it simple. And I would say start with what you have too. Damn, I'm just saying everything that you had. Like
No, that's good though, because like
it
it
is.
did, yeah, because like I said, we both are, you're more, like I said, you're more of a video guy than me. So
Mhm.
like, I mean, it's like I just want to hammer it home that like just to keep it as simple as possible. But what
Yeah,
about
man.
for people who are just starting kind of like something like this right now?
Oh, for sure. Like if you're doing it, like again, use what you have. You know what I mean? We're at a place now where everything is pretty good. Like everything is pretty good. You can get access to even what we're talking about before, the USB microphones, like get that. And like I think we were saying earlier about how like I don't want to say the word because I don't know if this will like get flagged if it's going on YouTube or anything. But
Mhm.
like the current situation the whole
The
world
current
is in at the
situation,
moment.
yeah,
Yeah,
that everybody's living
that
in.
started in
Yeah.
2020. Like
Yeah.
that actually has made people, and we were saying it's made people more open to doing online interviews, right? So like there's even been times where we were able to get people I think that you wouldn't be able to get to jump on a video call and talk to. And because the world was shut down, people are now we're more open to that because it's the only way to communicate. And like I think going forward, people will still be that. So actually, one of the best things probably would be, I think, to someone starting is keeping your podcast in maybe this type of way we're doing it right now, where it's like people can be in their homes, people can be where they are, and be comfortable and not like have to take that extra time to leave and go somewhere because it's cutting friction, right? You don't want to add more to someone else's day, especially if you're getting someone that's like a super busy person. Like that, like a lot of people at the agency we're working with are philanthropists, right? So it's like we need to like respect their time, like so we can't necessarily do that. So I would say is like utilize things that like StreamYard and what's the one we said the other just earlier? What are we talking about?
Riverside.
Riverside. Like I haven't used it yet, but like it seems like it's
Yeah, we'll give it the
doing
old
Google
college
Hangouts.
try.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're out here like
Yeah.
co-signing things we haven't used in
Yeah,
forever.
right. So yeah, it's awesome. It's the best ever. People are like, really?
You see
Um,
comments on this video like, yo,
yeah.
Firefest, you guys set us up.
Yeah, exactly. And also, what do you think? Is there any like bad advice that you've gotten about podcasting or like video
Mm.
podcasting? Like somebody told you something and you use it and you're just like, "Meh."
I think nothing bad advice. Something I think that people don't really realize though is if you're starting, like Thomas, you have a TV background and you have like TV and media training. So I think people need to understand like take time to learn that as well. You know what I mean? Because it is an art form. Like you just said before, like being able to like say, hey, one of our cameras aren't working. Like we need you to keep going. And you're like, you're not talking to time anymore. You're just talking so like
Yeah.
until they tell you you're good to go. Like that is an art. That's like a skill, right? You can't just like, because some people would do that, but they just might start talking nonsense, right? Like what you said, I'm pretty sure made sense, and they kept going and kept the flow going, right, of the show, till they got back to the actual, the cut back to camera, right, to the other room. But I would say is take the time to learn that aspect of it, media training, like being able to speak in a tone that like stays, because like you will fluctuate back and forth naturally when you have a conversation. I think a lot of people, they think a podcast is just like, there's that joke I saw, again, cutting to so many memes, where it's like two guys talking, they're like, oh man, we're really funny, we should start a podcast. Then they get in the podcast and it's like, so how was your day? Like they don't know what to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's like take the time to learn that craft of like being able to be present in the mic, keep your tone the same. Cause like again, like the way I'm speaking right now, it's keeping it so it's not going like, you know, like back and forth like that, as well as learning to structure up, right? Like having your questions out and like the way you want to go, allow yourself to meander. We've meandered throughout this conversation, right? But like I'm pretty sure you probably have a structure that like we can always cut back to. So anyone starting out, I think you need to start really focus on your pre-production. I think that's something that like will really help. Even if you don't have access to everything, make it just that much better, because it's going to flow so much better, and it's going to, you can always do a lot more in post anyways, but you'll know you have your structure there. So practice that, go watch interviews, study it, become a student again. You know what I mean? This is not just something, I think people like television and entertainment and media, because of YouTube and stuff, it's made it more accessible now to a lot more people. But I think people don't understand it's still a skill people go to school for, people practice, people have natural talents for. So yes, you can just get on and do it, but respect the craft and still put the time into it, because like yeah,
Yeah.
it's still a skill.
Respect the craft, man. Yeah, that's so like just hearing that, I'm just like, oh God, somebody gets it, right? But no, that's what I plan on doing in my programs too. So I mean, is to just make that as simple as possible too. And like you said, just give it, you know, like structure so it does flow, so you don't run into that problem of like, what do we talk about? Or
Yeah.
like it's like you know, it's like you're gonna be doing a lot in post, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, exactly, man.
But all right, man, we'll do. Where can we find you online?
You can find me online at Customatic. So Customatic on Instagram, customaconline.com, website, Twitter. I'm really active on there. But on Twitter, I just be talking a lot of crap. So if you want to talk crap with me, you can holler at me there. And yeah, that's where I'm at when it comes to like my own personal socials and things like that.
Cool, man. And
Oh,
I
sorry, and youtube.com/Customatic. I'm still on YouTube. Again, I think we're talking about this prior, but like I'm planning on focusing on more like bigger bodies of work. So I have taken a lot of time off my YouTube, but I'm planning to come back to it, but like giving my time to like work on the things that I need to work on before again trying to be consistent on it.
king of consistency, man.
Can't just show up one day, like come back 2 years later, like, hey.
Yeah, I it's not that I was gone for 4 months, you know, and YouTube lets you know, you know, it's like,
It tells you there's a timestamp. Like we know.
yeah.
Oh,
Awesome, man. Well, if you're watching this, awesome. Thank you so much. And if not, like I said, I'll link everything, all your handles, the video handle or the video link, everything in the thing below, man. And once again, I appreciate it.
no, thank you, Thomas, man.